Wow, that took forever to go live. Oh my goodness, there must be some kind of weird delay. Anyways, welcome everybody to another episode of Spilling Ink. We are the talk show that takes you behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the publishing industry. And as you can see, we've got two familiar faces today visiting us. But before we introduce them, we got to get the business out of the way. So let's talk about our sponsor who makes it possible for us to stream both on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. We love Joe Compton at Go Indie Now for this. Go Indie Now is the online indie artist network. They offer exciting new content weekly, monthly, and seasonally, all of which highlight, promote, and support indie artists of all kinds. So you can find them by going on to goindienow.com, subscribing to their YouTube channel, or following them on Facebook. And remember, this week we are starting, actually, is it this week? It is this week. Go Indie Now is beginning its new fall season programming beginning September 6th. They have brand new videos posting every single day until Christmas. You do not want to miss this. So if you haven't already, click like, click subscribe, go visit Go Indie Now, because remember, it's always time to go indie now.
Yes. All right. I love that phrase. That catch.
I love your catch line. I love it.
I know. I love it too. I'm always like, we were talking about this last night. We did the town hall last night, and Katie was there, of course. But I was like, I get a thrill every time I get to say it.
It's such a good line.
It really is.
All right. Well, now that we got the business over with, we'll do an eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Derek, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
I'm Derek Borne, a Canadian author of a sci-fi series. It's a superhero sci-fi with some spy espionage stuff in there. It's called The Ultimate Agent. It goes from a couple of guys that kind of have a bromance, and then as time goes on, they come across some mythical creatures like Bigfoot, Mothman, Loch Ness, Michigan Dogman, a Kraken, because why not, and a Minotaur. And now the finale is about to come out on September 29th. I am super excited. It's also breaking my heart. But the show must go on, and more projects have to come as well. More sci-fi coming your way.
Ooh, very nice. Yeah, the show must go on. We'll have new shows to go on, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're not saying goodbye. We're just saying we're putting you aside for now because new things are about to come.
Because I got to do dinosaurs, because I have to.
I love that you have like a Michigan dog man and other stuff in there. I'm from Michigan, so I actually know somebody who thinks they saw the Michigan dog man.
Really?
Yeah, I actually know somebody who was like, they were like driving, like I think they were on their way up north, because that's what we do in Michigan. You go on vacation, you go up north, right? So they were on like one of those like state roads, not a highway, and something big walked across, and they were like,
oh.
Yeah, it was like definitely they were like Michigan dog man, like.
Did it have a tail?
I'll have to ask them. I haven't talked to them in a little bit, but I'll have to.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
I see. You're being natty to the dinos. I see what's promoted there.
I've got a fan. She's one of my betas.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and introduce. Let me see if I can point in the right direction. Julia.
Hi. I write as J.K. Allen. So I write primarily young adult urban fantasy, and I do like to dabble in other stuff. So like I'll write short stories and horror. Pretend I'm Jay and write big scary monsters and stuff, but I'm not as good at horror. But I actually have a book coming out on Thursday. It is a new series, so it's set in the same world as my first series, which is the Angel Borne universe. So it's called HalfBlood Alliance. So we get a new generation of characters. You get to meet Bree, and I am in love with this book. I'm so excited for it to come out. So check out HalfBlood Alliance.
Awesome.
Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome.
And then there's this other guy over here. I don't know who he is. He just decided to pop in at the last minute.
Hi.
Okay.
Well, and since I haven't been working at the vet's office and Abby is off to college, now Heather needs a new assistant for photography. So I work with her when she's doing it, but she's always working on Saturday nights, and I'm just looking at my watch. I'm like, okay, we got to wrap this up because I've got to go. And then the people show up 15 minutes late, so of course that throws everything off.
That's okay.
You know,
Right.
You're here.
That's what matters. That's what matters.
Yes.
And you know, speaking of the Michigan Dog Man, back when I think Heather was probably in her early 20s when this happened, and I didn't know her then, but I've heard the story a couple times. She was driving from Grand Rapids to Holland on a back road, and about halfway here on this really kind of farmy area, she said that what looked like a small bear ran across the street in front of her, maybe a quarter mile up. You know, it wasn't a dog, it wasn't a cow, it wasn't any kind of domestic animal, too big to be any of those. But so now I'm thinking, could this have been the Michigan Dog Man?
Maybe, because yeah, like bears aren't in that area, right? Generally speaking,
not really. I mean, we've had a couple sightings, but not back then. I mean, because she's like 60 now, so that was like 40 years ago. Yeah. How are you doing, Julia?
I'm doing so good. I'm so happy to be on here with my friends. And
yes. I've missed you guys. And Derek, I heard that you're about to release a new Dinosaur Book.
The finale to the Ultimate Agent series is coming out, but the Dinosaur Book, I'm hoping early next year.
Early? That's a long time away, my friend.
I still have to finish writing it. So.
Oh, all right.
Excuses.
That is not early next year. I mean, it's already September.
Oh my gosh, it is.
Yeah.
Wow. COVID has killed our timeline. We don't know what time is anymore.
Yeah.
Right. I keep thinking it's still July or something.
Is today Saturday?
It's Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, this last 6 months has just been a really nasty black hole that I fell into. It's horrible.
Oh.
But thank God
better times ahead.
Yes, hopefully. And the TP shortage is over.
Yes.
Which, for those of us with IBS and other issues, it was a scary time. That was a bad time.
Was. My mom still, every time we go to the grocery store, she's like, "Are you going to pick up toilet paper, like just in case, you know, that it happens again?" I remember I was actually with Jay in Holland visiting when that all happened, and
when it first started.
And Heather was so mad because she's like, when we went to the store in the morning, there was like so much toilet paper, and then we went back to the store at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and it just wiped. It's like desolate area, you know. It's just.
And we had no idea. Otherwise, we would have bought some.
Right, and she's like, "I asked you if we needed any," you know.
Yeah.
It was great.
Thankfully, we hit up Costco just before COVID hit. Ooh. So we had the jumbo pack, just one, but just the jumbo pack of TP and paper towel and all that. And then we sat back and watched the chaos.
Excellent.
I would expect you to have like donated a roll being the nice Canadian, right?
Really?
But that was like the joy I got. Yeah, the joy I got was like watching in my community people like donating toilet paper to like that old lady who was like, "I didn't get any." So, like with all the bad news that was going on in the beginning of this and all the horrible stuff, like I was looking for the good, and it was like the good was like people saying like, "I have a roll of toilet paper, who needs it?" You know, and I was just like, yes, humanity still exists. Like.
I've always been someone to try to look for the positive, though, and we've actually been able to have dinner with people over Zoom. And we actually we'll make the same meal and then enjoy it all together and go, here's what we did, here's what we did. And yeah, it works. I found there's Steam games that are Jackbox games, and we'll do that over Zoom too, and it works.
We've done similar. There's been some like mommy nights out, which are both me and another mom friend. After the kids have gone to bed, we put the same show on Netflix on, and we sit at the computer and we talk with the same thing in the background, so we feel like we're in the same room.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
But Katie, if you ever want to do that with us or anyone else, usually from 9:30 to 11, we've just got Brooklyn Nine-Nine on. So go ahead and turn it on, and you can feel like you're on the couch with us.
There it is, yeah.
I love that show.
Yes. Oh, so good.
I have 4 dogs, and yeah, you're on the couch with.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have the right to
Yeah.
remain Doug Judy. Anything you Doug or Judy will be used against you in a court of Jug and Duty.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted.
Oh, I love that line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you guys both have releases coming out. You've got, wait, did you already introduce director? Wait, it's director now? Okay, cool.
Director Borne.
Did we already introduce director Borne, Katie?
Yes, he's moved up in the world. He's gotten a promotion.
We
All
waited
right.
for you though because I wrote.
He's got a surprise.
Oh, I'd like to hear the surprise.
So I can't quite do the really high parts in the song, but here goes.
All right.
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you waited for. Been writing a book, but it needs just a little more. And buried in your bones, there's the words that you can't ignore. Taking your breath, stealing your mind, and all that was real is left behind. J. Lavelle, J. Taylor, and Katie Solitis. Pull up a chair, grab a drink, and have some fun here with us. We talk books, writing, and digress, sometimes too much now that you know. Tell me, do you want to go where we talk about the author biz? Yeah, we cover almost all that there is, where author dreams come true, and yes, that can be you. This is Spilling Ink.
Yes.
Nailed it.
It was
Oh.
great. He even got
that up
the
in
Jake
5 minutes.
expressions in there.
Yes. I am totally I'm gonna screen grab that, Katie, and I'm gonna load that up as our intro for these. Because I think that's perfect.
I
That's
love it.
amazing.
I love it.
I was just talking to my wife. I'm going, what song do I use for a parody this time?
Yeah. Yep.
That was perfect.
That was great. Yeah, that was really awesome. I remember
Julia,
in middle school, I tried to write songs, and they were so cheesy. Like I was like in
Oh,
like
mine
6th
too.
grade, like rhyming love with above, and they're like 4 words to a line, and I didn't have music for it. I was just like la di da, you know.
But you're allowed to do that when you're younger. You're supposed to experiment and have fun.
Of course.
Right. But now I'm like, oh wow, writing music is so hard. Like true mad respect for it. Anyone who can like write a legit like good song.
And back then, you really knew nothing about love, but you're trying to sing and write a song about love.
Right. Yeah. About getting like dumped in kindergarten or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aww. He wouldn't share his crayon.
They didn't like my mixtape.
Oh God, the mixtape. Spent hours putting the radio or the recorder up to the radio to get that one song.
Yeah.
Right. And then they ruin it at the very end by talking over like the last line, and you're like, why radio DJ? You know?
Yeah. Oh, puppy.
Oh, I know that,
Oh.
sweetie.
Yeah, Mari says she misses you girls.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
such a cuddler.
Yeah. Heather went to she dropped me off and then went to Walmart with the kids, and so Mari's freaked out because mom's not home.
Oh.
Yeah. She's just shaking, poor baby.
Yeah.
See, and you're not the only one with bad songs.
No, solidarity. Yeah, I definitely was writing really bad love songs in my bedroom in middle school.
I wrote a lot of really bad poetry in middle school and high school. Yeah. I think that's just, you've got all this energy in you, and it's leaking out in weird ways.
Yeah, I think it's like a rite of passage for a lot of people.
It
You know,
is. And
to write that bad poem in, high school and be like, oh, it has so much emotion in it, and just feel like
But if you don't go through the bad parts, you'll never get to the good parts. It's that whole practice makes perfect. The same applies to writing books. Your first book, go back and reread it. It generally is gonna, it's gonna be one that you go, oh, maybe it needed more work. Even after publishing, you go back and look at your first writing and go, oh, compared to what you're writing now.
Right.
My wife will not let me throw out my first book.
Aww.
It's still it's stapled together in the corner. And see, in high school, I used to try to write my own sequels to things. So I did like an Agent Cody Banks sequel, where I wrote my own new characters, or like I wrote my own Spider-Man sidekick. Name was Dino Man. He could transform into any dinosaur he wanted. back then I thought that was amazing. Now I'm like, it's so corny. Oh my goodness, why did I do this?
I don't think it's that corny.
I'm sensing a theme. Dinosaurs are popping up quite a bit in your writing.
I say dinosaurs are back.
Hey, and you know what's interesting? Something that is linked to my book now is there's been a recent study that cousins of the Tyrannosaurus Rex actually ate vegetation.
Interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
So maybe everything, because that's kind of what my next book's all about, is what if everything we were told about dinosaurs is wrong?
Ooh.
Right.
And maybe they had like an upset tummy, so they were just like eating grass to help them puke.
Yeah, like other animals do. Yeah.
In the middle of the night, you hear the T-Rex.
Oh God, no!
The worst sound ever.
You thought small cats were bad. Try a saber-tooth.
Right.
Nothing will wake you up in the middle of the night faster than that sound of the cat getting ready to vomit on your bed or the carpet.
Yeah, right.
But speaking of writing, let's talk about our topic for tonight. Since we have all written books that continue on past their initial book, let's talk about series writing, and let's talk about what we do, how we go into it, and specifically for Derek, how you end it.
Yeah, that was hard. But what I ended up doing though was because originally I had written or started to write a second trilogy, but like I said earlier, I wanted to move on to some new projects. So basically, I took elements of that next trilogy and popped it in the third book. And I was still able to weave it among the story that I already had, and then somehow still find a way to give every character an ending.
Okay.
Right.
That's kind of hard to do, to make sure that, all your characters' endings are a good place to end, very satisfying for the reader, and then walk away.
And not every ending was a happy one, which also broke my heart.
Right.
How did you keep yourself straight with all of that? Did you have like a huge chart that you were using, or?
Oh, yeah, I had on one piece of paper, especially for the final battle, because superheroes, spies. I had like the main character that was the linchpin, and then little pops of everything else that was going on. Because when you watch movies like the Avengers, something's happening in the background while something's happening in the foreground. So while this character's doing this, that character's doing that. Oh man, that took a lot out of me.
It's hard to write out, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have that visual of like you can see the two characters doing stuff. You have to write it into words. It can be really difficult to keep track of everybody.
Yeah, and I appreciate how Joss Whedon was able to do that with Avengers, because there's that one scene that was actually almost like a one shot where Hulk and Thor, Iron Man's flying by, Hulk and Thor are on top of that big alien whale thing. Meanwhile, Hawkeye's shooting arrows at someone and other aliens, and then you've got Black Widow doing the same thing, Cap's down below, and then finally everything ends in Grand Central Station, and Hulk punches Thor.
Mm-hmm.
But there was so much that happened within like 3 minutes, and you're going, how do you keep that all straight? Holy smokes!
Right.
So
do you guys ever do like series compendiums to like keep track of your notes and stuff?
For me, it was all up here for the most part.
Oh, the pantser method.
Yeah, I'm definitely a pantser.
It's hard to do a lengthy series as a pantser, because there are so many stories, so many characters, so many arcs that have to be tied into the end, that have to be, to that final satisfying conclusion. And if you don't have, charts or things written down, you're relying on that brain and hoping that it hasn't forgotten something or missed something.
Yep.
Because it will come out. Readers today are so specific, and they follow.
Oh, yeah.
And if you miss something, they're like, hey, dude, what happened here? This isn't right. Fix it.
Right.
Yeah. And in this last book, I introduced a very minor character, but I still had my betas that were reading through it, and they're going, okay, so I'm up to this point, but what's still happening with that one? Why did you introduce him or her? I'm going, you know what, you're just going to have to be patient with me. But it wasn't until near the end where I actually figured out, oh, I could totally do this with this character, and that actually
Right.
helps finish off this other character's arc.
Yeah,
So-
I'm kind of a mix between plotting and pantsing in that, like, I'll do a very basic, like, one thing happens in each chapter that I know for sure, and then kind of pants around that event happening. So I'll, like, you know, get a great idea in the middle of writing and be like, oh, this leads up to this. And then, but if I don't write it down, then I totally forget to pay off in the end.
Writing is like a stone pathway. You have all the stones, but the grass fills in all the cracks.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that. That's pretty. Now, I like what Joe's saying here. He says that all movies have a great script supervisor whose sole job is to keep the continuity straight and the details right. Now, for us authors, we don't have a script supervisor. We may have beta readers. We may have an editor who will come in, but a lot of times a single person's eye view is going to either miss something or may not see something in the same way you're seeing it. So we often have to rely on multiple points of view, multiple readers in order to really catch a lot of those mistakes.
Yeah. And I think especially when it comes to the finale of a series, there's more pressure.
Oh, you got to stick the landing.
yeah.
You got to
Right.
stick that landing.
So, I mean, there
Things
was some
bigger
stuff.
and better and more exciting
Yeah.
too at the same
Well,
time.
if you don't, then you leave readers very bitter about your story. And we can use Game of Thrones as one of the most divisive, didn't stick the landing. That entire 8th season created huge rifts between the viewership who, up to that point, it was like one of the biggest, best series. Everybody loved it. Didn't stick the landing. And
Especially when there's like a Starbucks cup.
Yeah. On the table, the banquet table.
But it turns your fan base against you if you really don't provide that satisfying ending and don't follow through with what you set out to do.
Yeah.
There's a series I watched that was just amazing. Like the cinematography, the acting, the writing, everything so incredible. And then the ending was just like this kind of, it was a little outlandish. It was like, you know, it had been done before in a major like novel series, and so it was kind of supposed to be like this homage to like the Sherlock's Holmes Moriarty thing, and I was like so mad that they did this like ridiculous Moriarty ending and in this incredible series, and I was just like, I still, when I like see it on Netflix, I'm like, like scrolling past it so angrily, like ready to throw my remote at the TV. Oh, I don't want to give it away because it's spoilers, because I said the Moriarty ending stuff, but I'll tell you after the show.
Okay.
It's an incredible series, but I was like so mad about the ending, and I was like, you little swearing and like ripping my hair out and all that, you know. I was like, how dare you? How dare you?
Do you guys think it's tougher to write the sequels than it was to write the original, or is the original still the toughest?
I had more fun writing the second Ultimate Agent. I mean, when I've said this many times before, but I originally wrote my trilogy when I was 14 to 17. So the guts were there, and now it was just me filling it with actual storyline and character flaws and all that kind of stuff. And I actually had a lot of fun rewriting characters to actually make the story live. Because originally it didn't have much sustenance. But this finale, it took a lot out of me. It actually took more emotion out of me than I thought it would.
Okay.
I get that, because you've grown up with these characters, you know, literally at this point, because of how long you've spent with them. They become real in your mind. And I think for authors, when we write a series, we spend so much more time getting to know these characters that they do feel like a real person. And the ending of that series is like saying goodbye. It's like when a friend moves away, and though they're still technically in reach, you know you're not going to see them as often as you saw them before, and that loss is felt.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead, Jay.
No, I was going to say I don't think I really feel that with fictional characters that I create. I feel that way with books that I read, that I feel the loss if when the book ends or a character dies. But if I've written a character that's based on an actual human that I know, or that has a lot of their attributes, then I get more connected. But I don't know, maybe I'm just really cold-hearted, because they're like paper people. They don't mean anything to me.
I don't think so, because I feel like, when other writers will talk about how, like, they don't plan what the character does, they just write down, they follow their actions and just write it down, and I definitely don't feel that way.
Yeah.
So I think you and me are more similar in that way, Jay, and that like I'm always like, I know I'm ultimately making the decisions for my characters of this is going to happen, or, they're going to do that. And like, yeah, they do take on kind of a little bit of their own persona, where I will be like, oh, this doesn't feel like what they would say. But I never feel that complete disconnect where they're their own person. It's always still like a part of my imagination. So I think for us, relating to the character, like you said, like when we put a lot of ourselves or a lot of people we love into it, then we feel really connected to the characters, but we still have kind of that distance of like, I know they're not really dying.
Yeah.
In the end, like I'll still be like a baby about like, oh, this character, I love him and I got to kill him. But like when I'm typing it out, I'm like, yeah, you died,
When I was younger, I would read books in series all the way up to the last chapter. And I would get through basically to the climax, but I would never get through the goodbye portion, the complete resolution and ending of a story. Because then in my mind, I didn't finish it. The character story is still going on. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
I like that.
I would read like that.
Yeah, that's such a sweet thing.
Because I do. I connect with characters, not just the ones I write, but the ones that I really read and follow, especially the long series. I don't want it to end. I don't want to say goodbye to them. So I tend to do that. I stop before the end, and then it hasn't ended yet.
Yeah, reading I feel more connection to, because it's not a part of my head. It's not a part of my imagination. It's somebody else then I really like feel connected to them. But like writing, like there is a little bit of distance between me and the characters, because like I also know like ultimately I'm doing this to them, so I gotta like find a way to be okay with it. So.
And what Amanda says is very true, because the one comment that was just up there.
Oh, right here.
No matter what you write for each character, that character is a part and piece of you. So essentially, you're saying goodbye to a part of yourself.
Right.
And I think that's really hard, especially for this finale. A lot of my characters are reeling from the death of a certain character. So to even get in the mindset of each different character and how they're responding to that was a bit emotionally draining, personally, for me. So.
Along with that, we've got a comment from Joe. He's asking, did you do anything special when you wrote the last word in your series, or to say goodbye to your characters?
Cried.
Well, I think that you're supposed to have a glass of a certain kind of champagne, and then a single cigarette, and one match, and then you burn the whole manuscript on the grill next to you. Something like that.
Yeah, pyre. You gotta have the funeral for them and send them off to the gods. I try to celebrate every book I write, so I'll have like a special dinner, we'll go out and treat ourselves, or like we'll make a cake or do something just like so I can like I'm all about celebrating my wins. So when I finish a novel, big deal to me, and I'm like, whoa, let's go get food, it was more emotional for me to finish my the last book in the series. But I don't know that I did anything extra special. I was just like, did my usual, I kind of had my like quiet moment at the keyboard. And then I was like, okay, let's celebrate the end of a series. Like it was a really big accomplishment for me. And I tried to focus on the positive of that rather than like thinking about how sad, like I'll never write these characters again. Like I'm getting weepy just thinking about it.
When one book closes, many more open.
Right. You try to think like positively, like the next book, I get to explore a new character and get to know them. I find that very exciting. So like that helps me to kind of get over that like closure of the last book and just be like, well, now I get to find out all about this new character that I've been dreaming about writing for the last 6 months. So, it's exciting in that way.
Well, and I think that some of you who write a lot of series, and I don't write much in series, but I think that some of you take the secondary characters or more minor characters from previous books and kind of explore those a little bit more, right? So it's almost like you're still continuing that story, but just in another person's.
And it's a wonderful way to continue because you do get to peek in on your original characters' lives a little and kind of tell people where they are, what they're doing. But because you're focusing on the new character, you're actually exploring another character a little bit more in depth. So you don't feel the loss as much and you have that excitement of new character, new adventure, yay.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually with some of the new books that I'm planning, they are subtly linked to the Ultimate Universe.
Oh, you're doing like a Stephen King universe thing where all the other characters get mentioned. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So just because when I started writing of the myths and legends and monsters that the agents kind of come across, like one of them's Bigfoot, and I introduced a little boy Bigfoot, a little foot, if you will, and his name's Frederick, and I kind of thought, what'd be interesting is writing a book about a Bigfoot that wants to enter society.
Mm-hmm.
And what would happen from his point of view.
Right.
With other ones like the Mothman, I thought, what would happen if they actually made it back home from where they came from?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And time's gone past. What happened to their family? What happened to this? So I've got all these little things that are just woven together.
I like that.
I want to know what food you eat for your brain to operate so well that you remember all these little connections.
A lot of olive oil.
As organic as possible.
I've been trying to eat fish and blueberries, and I'm just still...
You need the healthy fats. You need the healthy fats, and your brain actually needs carbs to operate properly.
Okay.
Is pizza, is that considered a healthy fat?
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Good deal, good deal.
Homemade dough and everything.
Now, Director Borne, your books are all based in some version of our reality, right? With the supernatural elements included?
I come at them from a sci-fi point of view. That not all of them have like a demon background or whatever kind of thing, but I try to go, okay, how would this scientifically be explained? And what can I take some liberties on?
Do you think it's easier to write grounded in reality like that because we already know our world, or do you prefer to? I mean, have you written where you're creating your own world?
Basically, yeah. I mean, there's some things that I threw in my books, like you've got adamantium and vibranium in Marvel, so I came up with my own mineral called galaxidium, and basically, galaxidium allows my techie hero to teleport.
That's cool, really cool.
And it's able to do other things as the series goes on.
I think that's a good way to approach things when you ground the basis of your story in a believable reality that we can understand and then blend in new elements. You give people that basis that they can grasp onto. They can easily understand the basics of your story, and these new elements become interesting, and they can be curious about them and want to learn more, and that creates that need to want to read and find out what happens and how they're used.
And as long as you give them enough to go, okay, yeah, I believe in a giant rage monster.
Well, you gotta make other things believable so they'll buy into those big stories.
Yeah.
Well, we've had a big green monster in our fantasy history for years. We've had Godzilla.
Yeah.
So he's a believable element because so many people know the stories, and a lot of these, I think they're called cryptids. Is that the proper term
Yep.
for them? Are stories that people do know a lot about, and so they still it's not real in our reality, but it's real enough because the stories are so familiar to people.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's
I
like you were
think
saying earlier. Sorry, Jay.
no, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just gonna say the fact that you guys were telling stories of people who thought they saw the Michigan Dog Man. Like, is it real? Is it not?
Well, and I think that in general, most of the time, people who hear stories about the various cryptids actually want to believe they're real, even if they're in their brain or their hearts, they really don't believe it. I think that a lot of them want to believe it. So when they pick up a story that is based in reality, is based in a situation that they can relate to, but there's that that creepy element, it makes it easier for them to get in, kind of like Katie was saying. And I don't know, I like that too, and I like to write that. I like to ground my stories here on our Earth. But when I was growing up, I read a lot of Piers Anthony, and that's all in the magical land of Xanth, which is really Florida with magic. And I absolutely loved it. But I find nowadays if I pick up an epic fantasy or some kind of I don't know all my fantasy terms, Katie, some kind of fantasy that doesn't take place in our land, something like that, I have a really tough time getting into it because I'm spending half the book trying to figure out what this land looks like and what it's like, and then I can pay attention to the characters. So it's a little tougher for me, but I'm old, and don't look at me like that, Director Borne. You're like 30.
It's
31.
the balancing of the familiar and the foreign that can really make a reader want to dive deeper. But just like Jay's saying, for readers who want that total escapism, there are books out there, and the epic fantasy is great for that because it does create an entirely new world that they can escape to.
Do you know what the exception was for me recently? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, I read, and you've heard me talk about this just because I loved it so much, Starless, the book by Jacqueline Carey, which is an epic fantasy that's just one novel, and it's like a normal length novel, actually. And that was one that is not grounded in our reality, but I was really able to pick it up, or I don't know, assimilate or something pretty quickly. And I don't know if that's just because she's a really damn good storyteller or what, but that was one that was really relatable for me. But some of them are really tough, especially when they take place on different planets. That's especially hard for me.
Well, and sci-fi, there's different versions of sci-fi, just like there's different versions of fantasy. You have some that stick more to the tried and true, believable, realistic technological advances, and then you have some that are completely out there on the other side with as much craziness as you can think of, and they still try and make it true enough for readers to accept that these are future elements.
Let's face it, Wizard of Oz, they just said, okay, let's see what hits the wall.
Well, Wizard of Oz is all based off stuff, though, like it's all analogies, and so there's some crazy thoughts that go into like this fantastical world, but it's still like got ties to our world. And I was just going to say earlier that like I am a lot like Jay in that I love writing in our world, but kind of having that hidden magical world like inside of it that kind of peels back for the reader. And like I think one of my early attempts at a novel was one of those epic high fantasy magical lands places, and I got to 40,000 words and I kind of stopped and never finished it. And I think that like a lot of that is because now I do prefer to like have it the magic world in our everyday world. Like I love that kind of everyday magic.
Yeah.
And I like that too. I like the hidden world underneath our own that only certain people are able to access.
Yeah,
that's a fun way to approach things.
Joe asked a really good question though: hard sci-fi or soft sci-fi? And see, hard sci-fi, like Michael Crichton, if you ever read his books, he goes in depth on the science. I think it was the Andromeda Strain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to skip chapters and
Yeah.
get back to the action just because I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do like all the brain work from
dude had it down.
Russell Crowe.
Well, and if you ever actually read Jurassic Park, I mean, you read that book and you believe, okay, we can make dinosaurs. This shit's gonna happen.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was you know who I really enjoy. And Joe, this is actually to your question, and it's for once not off topic for me, but I really enjoy James Rollins. James Rollins writes action thrillers about Sigma Force. It's kind of a paramilitary science officer kind of thing, and they go around and save the world. But there's a lot of science fiction, and you know it's science fiction, but there's also enough facts in there that you really believe it. You really believe this stuff can happen,
Right.
and I absolutely love that. It's enough that I don't have to think real hard. I mean, I can enjoy myself, but it's smarter than Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So it's like
before the show started, we were talking about like the Trek universe and other sci-fi shows that are very popular, and the Expanse is the one that comes to mind for me as being a believable futuristic sci-fi that really tries hard to make readers think that this can happen.
Right. Well, I was going to say even Jay's book Pathosis, like when they talk about the bugs and the viruses, and the character's knowledge is so intricate, and you're like, oh my gosh, whoever wrote this did their research, like they know their stuff. And that's what I love about it, like a good sci-fi, when you're like, oh, it's not like big info dumps of like, oh, here's all the facts that I learned while I was researching this book, but you can tell that they actually like did put care and attention, and they actually knew, like, there's 2 different types of arachnids, and one of them, does this, and one of them does that, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm learning stuff that I didn't know, but it makes the book so much more believable, because you're like, this could happen.
And the whole time you're reading, your skin is crawling because you're like, oh my God, there's bugs on me.
It was all a trick to get everybody to learn about spiders and the different types of pathogens. That's all it was. Thank you, though, Julia. I appreciate
to you by.
Great. No, when I was reading that book, I was like looking around for spiders, but it was also like so fascinating because you were just like, these facts are like so true, though. Like, like, oh my gosh. It just made the world real to me, and then that was like the worst thing that could happen, because like I used to be terrified of spiders, so I'm like, now spiders are more real to me, and now I'm going to be terrified of them.
I'm really
again.
terrified.
Well, it's funny is that in that book the spiders were kind of the harbinger of death. They brought nasty stuff to the rest of society, but it was right around the time that I was writing that book that I really stopped being afraid of spiders. They became more fascinating to me than anything. And so now, if you turn your head and look and there's a spider, I'll still be startled because there's something there, but they really don't bother me. I picked one up just earlier today out of my wife's car and tossed it out on the ground because I didn't want her to squish it when she got in the car later. But it's just like, they, I think that once you expose yourself enough to a certain subject or a certain thing, it loses some of that mysticism and maybe some of the fear you once had for it. That's not true in all trauma situations, and especially if there's complex PTSD involved. That's a whole different ballgame. But I think that learning about anything makes it a little bit more accessible and a little bit easier to digest.
So when are you getting a pet tarantula, Jay?
We actually had several tarantulas living with us for a while. I did I did a photo shoot with a young model. In Grand Rapids, it's just a little ways away from here, and so she actually had spiders crawling on her for the photo shoot.
Oh,
it was pretty cool. And then
amazing photo, but terrifying.
But so then after that, the spiders just lived with us for a few weeks, and One of them went back to its original owner, and then the model actually called me up and say, I'd really like to adopt one of these tarantulas. And I say, okay, so we arranged for her to have that tarantula. But yeah,
Cool.
and then now I just met another lady who breeds tarantulas here in Holland, and she lives one street away from me. So I'm like, oh, well,
Nice.
I might have to make something happen here, because she's got some of the legit big ones, the size of your hand ones, and I would love to get a hold of one of those for a photo shoot. What were we talking about?
Now, if there's ever an outbreak, we know where they came from.
Yep, we do.
Well, I did just watch a documentary on biohacking. So, give me a tarantula and some,
Oh,
some
mad
enzymes.
scientist stuff's going on over there now.
Okay. Marvel's already covered this. There is a villain with the name Tarantula.
Oh, yeah, they've covered just about everything, I think.
Almost. Yeah.
Oh,
Still
Well,
going.
every story's been told, right? It's just how
That's
you
true.
tell the new one. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so Julia, I haven't read any of your books. I would really like to know a little bit more about this new one, because you have Angel Borne, Demonkind, and now HalfBlood Alliance.
Yeah, so the first series is Angel Borne, Heaven Fire, and Demonkind. And so in my Angel Borne universe, when the first demon was created, it's a fallen angel. When the first demon was created, an angel went and got a mandate from, the heavens or whatever. It's not a religious book. It just plays with mythology and religion and stuff. So he gets permission to father children to protect humanity from the demon kind and different spawn that demons create. So the first series, she doesn't know that she is angel born or half angel until she turns 16 and she gets a demon mark, and it kind of activates her powers, and she, stuff happens and she's thrown into this world she didn't know existed. So it's kind of like we're discovering the world with her, and it's really exciting. This one, she grows up with her father the whole time, and then begins training with weapons and moving into the Alliance house. And Angel Born are no longer a big secret. The government knows about them, and they help to protect humans. They have human liaisons with the public, with the government, with the media, and all that. So it's kind of, I get to make the world more complex as I'm going in this series. And the character is also, it's not me, obviously, but she's half Korean like I am. And so there's a lot of culture and like little bits that I get to put in that's really is a lot of fun for me to write, because it's like, my, mom making a big Korean dinner and her having her friends come over and try it. And it's kind of like, getting to know the personality of the character and getting to know like her new friends and all that stuff was really exciting for me to write. So I really love this series already, even though it's only book one. You're having an exciting night over there.
I don't know what we're celebrating. I don't know, Labor Day maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Labor Day. Yeah,
It's a long weekend for me up here.
What?
Yeah.
Julia, you were just talking about demons. Let me show you something that I saw earlier today.
Okay.
Find it. Maybe.
Do you involve the Nephilim in your book?
So the Nephilim become these. There's a mythology that 10%. The flood killed the Nephilim, and so 10% became these angry spirits that want to experience life again, and so they possess people. So that features in the first series and maybe in the second series. So that's the role they play, as kind of these possessive spirits that cause havoc.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I've done my Bible research, so I know a few things.
Oh, I'll have to maybe hit you up after the show. And
Yeah. What's interesting, actually, is Halloween lands around the same time the flood occurred.
Oh, that's really interesting.
When you line things up, actually, because it's interesting, because basically when the the angels fell from heaven and became the Nephilim and all that. When the flood came and killed the Nephilim and their children and everything, it's basically because it lines up with Halloween and we celebrate the dead and witches and demons and all that. It's because they still feel for the loss of their families that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And it is quite interesting when you go through history and all the dates actually do line up around that time.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah.
That's also
Yeah, I'm
supposed to be
definitely going to hit you up after the show.
Yeah.
Be like, let's talk some mythology.
Yeah.
Isn't it supposed to be the day when the veil between the living and the dead, that the spirits can potentially cross over?
But when you actually correlate certain scriptures within the Bible, there are no spirits after death. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, at least from the research I've done.
Interesting.
That is really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up going to school in the Catholic school, and
Me too.
My best friend, yeah, I know you did too, Katie. But my best friend Luke and I would, whenever we'd have sleepovers or anything, we'd stay up late talking about kind of the mythologies of the church and all the old histories, but it's always the creepy stuff, We were never talking about Jesus as our Lord and Savior. We were like, what if this demon came up and we somehow summoned him and he burned down the school for us? Oh, and funny story, and I can tell you this now because it's the statute of limitations has long since passed, and Luke is dead now, so he can't be held culpable. But when I think we must have been 15 years old. There was an old abandoned schoolhouse, like one of the one-room schoolhouse tiles, right? It was like a country block from my house and his house. And so we would meet there and we would bring little Tupperware containers filled with our parents' liquor that we had pilfered. And so we'd drink out of these little Tupperware containers. And then one day he got a hold of a couple of cigarettes somehow. And so we smoked these cigarettes. It was awful. And we left that night. The schoolhouse burnt to the ground. So, and it was blamed on a lightning strike. But in my head, to this day, I'm like, oh my God, we must have thrown a cigarette out from an old schoolhouse and burned this fucking thing down. And so it's like, oh, if I wasn't already going to hell, I'm now burning down schoolhouses. No.
No, I don't know. Do cigarettes catch fires that quick? I mean, maybe in old stuff because now stuff is more fire retardant than it used to be. But
I feel like I don't know. I feel like it'd be really tough for a cigarette to catch something on fire. But I mean, maybe if it was fluffy and tindery. And
right.
I don't know. I guess
you
maybe
spilled some of your parents' liquor on it.
My dad and I used to work. Yeah, my dad and I used to work in insurance restoration, and I remember we had to go to a house and board it up because this old guy had been smoking, and he fell asleep on his couch, and he just let his hand fall to the couch, and basically burnt his entire lower half of him and most of the house. So it could happen.
Anything that's flammable can create the ignition for the flames. So yeah.
I remember there was a movie that it was the arsonist. It was a serial arsonist would take a lit cigarette and a little piece of paper and fold the cigarette in the paper and paper clip a match to it. So when it burned down to a certain point, the match would light, the paper would catch on fire, and whatever he had placed would burn. Yeah. And I always remember thinking, oh, that just seems so genius. Yeah.
A war zone where you're at. My goodness.
My dogs are losing their fucking minds inside.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Yeah, mom's not home to keep them calm either. Yeah. Oh geez. Yeah.
Goodness.
I don't know. This just occurred to me earlier as little pet peeves for horror stuff and when people don't do their research on stuff, but the whole pentacle versus like the reverse pentacle thing. I'm like, the symbol of the pentacle is the 4 elements of earth, and then your spirit, which is pointing up. So I hate when you see a regular pentacle and they're like, oh, Satanism. And it's like, no, it's not pointing down to hell, so it's not Satanism. And I'm just like, it's a regular pentagram, guys. Like,
What if you're standing on the other end of it? Doesn't it point the opposite way then?
Well, I mean, like, but usually, like, if you like they'll like have it drawn on a body or something, and so it'll have like the star pointing up, and I'm like, that's just regular, like,
oh my gosh,
the spirit pointing to heaven, So,
speaking of things being the wrong way and drawn on bodies, have any of you read Rising Sun by, I believe that was Michael Crichton, actually, since we were talking about Crichton. In that, they find a dead body, and on the dead body, tattooed on the dead body's penis, is a question mark. And nobody could figure out why the hell there was a question mark on this dead body. And it was later revealed, hilariously, that when you stretch out the question mark, it becomes an exclamation point. Doesn't matter.
Also, he had a medical condition.
All right. So on that note,
we end the show. Yeah.
Now we got to turn it to Derek to tell us about his series before we run out of time, and give us the finale. Well, don't spoil it, but give us the lead up to the finale.
Where the second Ultimate Agent was left off.
Jesus.
Those are spies in the background. I'm saying it right now. At the end of the second novel, a character dies, and so the third book is about the organization reeling from this death, and other things happen that are kind of being a detriment towards the spy agency. Meanwhile, other crazy stuff's happening, and it's just, you've got emotions, you've got action, and it's so hard not to spoil things.
Did you cry at the end?
I cried. The happy thing that I had with this series, though, was after my beta readers read it, they said that was the perfect ending. And that's all I wanted.
That's what you need. You stuck the landing for your readers. They're going to be satisfied that then you did the series justice.
I'm still going to be stressed for the public, but
now that's going to be hard too, because you're promoting and talking about a series is at the end. It's the last time you're going to be promoting the series this aggressively, because books don't have an expiration date. You will always have reason to promote them. Yeah. But promoting the end of the series, that's kind of bittersweet.
Yeah. What's the release date for that, Derek?
September 29th.
Okay.
So we're 24 days.
If you're up for it, we should have you come do a one-on-one show where you do a reading from the book and then maybe talk about it a little bit if you're up for something like that.
I would love to. Would I have to do the first book or
whatever you want, man? It's your book.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say.
You want to read about Bigfoot or the Loch Ness or? See, Amanda knows. The whole sky is falling feeling.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
No, doesn't Amanda write with you as well?
So, interesting thing, actually, Amanda is a poet as well. And she wrote a poem of one character's reaction basically to a character she was really close with, the character that died at the end of the second book. So I asked her, I said, can I use that poem as the prologue for book 3? And she said, yes. So I was able to do almost like a smaller version of a co-write, which it was all her. So not really a co-write. I don't know what I'm talking about. But she had that. I also had my co-writer that I had for Michigan Dogman. She wrote a letter from one of her characters that was in the Michigan Dogman to a character in my book of his reaction to said character's death. Just to kind of
Oh, so you got
also,
Easter eggs in there. That's nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
yeah,
That's
and
really
that's
cool.
all I'm gonna say. Anything more than that is I'm gonna have a few people asking questions.
Oh, all right. That's it. No more spoilers.
It was that was Homelander that died, right? And,
Homelander? Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't started season 2 yet.
oh, okay. I haven't either. I've seen it on there, but I was like, oh man, it was so intense. But yeah, I can't get into it. We don't have time to get into that show.
Oh, the
No,
boys,
we
the
are
boys,
actually
the boys, the boys.
Mhm.
we could all talk about that one. That's an interesting spin-off. I like what they did with that.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
in your spy agency, at least they're a lot better people though than
They try to be. They try to be. Through thick and thin, even if the government's against them.
Oh, wow. Well, that was an hour. That went pretty fast.
Didn't it though?
Yeah.
Even though we were under fire the whole time.
Yeah. Jeez. I'm gonna have little pieces of fireworks all over the backyard again. And
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, right under your pillow.
All right. Well, before we go, we've got to we got to pay some homage to our other wonderful sponsor, which is Miss Wonderful Rebekah Jonesy, who is the author of Realistic Fantasies, both Sexy and Killer. And she is such a wonderful supporter of the show. She is here every single episode in the comments, giving us our lovely cattle prodding as we need it.
Cattle prod.
And of course, all of the links for everyone we've mentioned, including our wonderful guests, will be in our show notes on both Facebook and on YouTube. So if you're looking for a way to contact them, it'll be there.
And I just want to add real quick too that for those of you who don't know them personally or haven't seen them on a show before, Derek and Julia are really two of the kindest people I know that we work with. They really are just really awesome, wholesome people. So the kind of people we love having on here. So thank you two so much for coming on again.
You can't say things like that, and I can't hug you.
Yeah, I know, right?
I miss hugs so much.
Oh, me too.
Oh,
Me too. I love hugs. I do. But seriously, you two are amazing. We just love having you guys.
You can't
right.
see it in this lighting, but I'm like bright red right now.
there you go. There you go.
Just
Hug
like
for me.
Imagine that
Give me a
was a
hug
hug
for
right
me.
there.
Yeah.
Hey,
I wish I was Kermit.
Alicia, where's my wife?
Uh-oh. Wait, what's happening? I don't like where this is going.
This is a late hour show. Gets a little steamier.
Hold on.
All the regular viewers, sign off now. All the late night viewers, stay tuned for Kinemax.
Chili ink spice.
The one night I actually hid Kermit under the covers, and she went to open the covers, and Kermit was just laying there,
Oh.
legs crossed.
So everybody, thank you so much for watching. You know, like the video, share it. Go and check out Go Indie Now. It's a great network of shows. Joe really does a fantastic job, and he works his ass off for the indie artist community. So check him out. Check out Rebekah Jonesy's books on 3furiouspress.com. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Until next time.